So today I'm going to talk about OAuth. We probably use OAuth knowingly or unknowingly on a daily basis because most of the applications today use this authentication mechanism. So, so by definition, OAuth is an open standard for access delegation. This is basically commonly used as a way for internet users to grant websites or mobile applications access to their information on other websites, but without sharing or giving the passwords. So let's go ahead and see how the OAuth works and how the OAuth flow looks like. I'm going to explain it in a very simple and very basic term so that we don't get any confusion there. Okay, so let's take an example. Okay, Bruce, a good friend of mine, he identified an app called Pied Piper. So this is our good friend Bruce, smiley face, and he came to know about this app called Pied Piper. I'm sure you've heard about this app before. So very good app. And Bruce installed this app on his mobile phone. Now, essentially, Pied Piper also has a website. So whatever I'm talking now will work both for mobile app and website. And from an OAuth flow perspective, let me just highlight here. OAuth flow. So from an OAuth perspective, Bruce is called a resource owner. And Pied Piper is called client. Okay, so the moment Bruce opened the app on his phone, it says, "Hey, let's go ahead and sign up." That's when Bruce found out he can use his email and password, and create a new account, or he can use his Google or Facebook or Twitter accounts. Right? So Bruce is lazy just like you and me. So Bruce went ahead and clicked on Google because he's done this before, not knowing what's going to happen behind the scenes. So Bruce kind of hit on Google. So that's when Pied Piper kind of redirected Bruce to page on Google. So I mean, most likely it would look something like accounts.google.com. From an OAuth flow perspective, the terminology for this server is authorization server. Right? So authorization server, which is Google in this case, will ask Bruce to sign up here using his credentials. Right? So Bruce then hits the sign in button, and that's when a pop-up will show up. It says, "Hey Bruce, this app called Pied Piper is asking me to provide access to your profile and also your contacts, which I have in my server." So essentially placing two options to Bruce, which is yes or no. So in this scenario, two things are happening here. So Google is actually providing a scope and also asking Bruce's consent to say yes or no. So the scope here is profile and contacts. So these two are called scopes. And yes or no, basically, obviously, this is called consent. I'm writing this in capital letters because this is OAuth terminology. And if let's just say Bruce says no, nothing happens, it will redirect to Pied Piper and say, "Hey, you know what? Google says it cannot provide because you said you don't believe in us." In other case, let's just say Bruce hit yes, and that's when it will direct to Pied Piper again. And so, what's happening here? So behind the scenes, Google actually sends a authorization code here. So let me just write up here, authorization code, right? So in a typical scenario, when once it redirects to the client, which is Pied Piper in this case, it would do some kind of loading process because it has received some code and it has to do something behind the scenes, right? So what is happening here? So I'm gonna show here. So Pied Piper using this authorization code will establish another connection with the authorization server using this authorization code to exchange for an access token. Okay, so let's go back to one step and ask us a question. How did Google know that it's going back to the same Pied Piper? Because in the very first step, we actually provide a callback URL to Google saying, hey, once you're done, send Bruce back to Pied Piper. So I would say something like this. Okay, so we came back to Pied Piper. We've received the authorization code, and we are using that authorization code to exchange with the authorization server to get an access token. So we want to get an access token here. Okay, so using that access token, Pied Piper will then establishes another communication with resource server. Okay, let me just do this. Okay, I'm gonna do this here. Okay, I'll just do here. So this is called resource server. Essentially, this is also within the Google servers. And in this case, it's contact server, okay? So the account server from the Google just authorizes it, but the contact server has the actual contact information. So basically, Google has many services. So in each of these services, they have data, reserved for that particular service. So that's when the access token is being used to get information about the contacts with Bruce. So the reason why these are dotted lines, you might ask why authorization code here and then use that authorization code in exchange of access token, because there is a little networking concept here, because if you observe, I've highlighted here this straight line and dotted lines here, because these all the straight lines here are called friend channel communication. Let me open this here. All the straight lines are called friend channel communication, and all the dotted lines are called back channel communication. Okay, so why friend channel and why back channel? Because when I say back channel, this essentially the back channel communication is happening, with behind the scenes with server to server. So my app, so the Pied Piper's app server is actually communicating with Google server behind the scenes. So it's not happening through the browser. So whatever is happening through browser is called friend channel communication. Whatever happens behind the scenes through backend servers from both authorization server to client server, that's called backend back channel communication. So obviously, just because it's back channel, these are more secure because it's not prone to any front-end based, malware, any kind of, intrusion there. So back channel communications are usually, highly secure, and, front channel communications are usually, less secure. There are a few other, different OAuth flows have different styles of communications. Some of them have, both, front channel plus back channel. Some of them have only front channel communication. Some of them might have only back channel communication. Again, it depends upon the type of application, depends upon the security that the application should have. In this case, in this Pied Piper application, we have both front channel and back channel application. So essentially, this is what an OAuth flow looks like. These are all the different stages and different, different terminologies that are used in OAuth flow. So that should cover at a high level overview of what OAuth is and what are these access token, authorization codes, and front channel and back channel communication, etc. So I think that's pretty much. Thank you.